For 10,000 years, the master of mankind has sat upon the golden throne, enduring a state of perpetual, agonizing death. Trillions of human beings across 1,000,000 worlds pray to him every single day. Wars of unimaginable scale are fought. Planets are burned to ash, and entire generations are fed into the meat grinder of industry, all in his name. He is the undisputed, absolute ruler of the human race. Yet for 10 millennia, he has not spoken a single, undeniable word to his people. We naturally assume this is a tragedy. We assume that if the Emperor could simply speak, he could fix the broken, bloody mess that the Imperium has become. But what if his silence is not a medical failing? What if his silence is the only thing keeping humanity alive? Today, we are going to dive into the darkest political and psychological irony of the 41st millennium to understand a terrifying truth. Why a waking, speaking God Emperor would be the absolute destruction of the human race. Welcome back to the abyss. Why do human beings so naturally gravitate towards silent gods? The psychological answer is both simple and deeply cynical. A silent god is the perfect mirror. When a deity speaks, they draw a definitive line in the sand. They establish undeniable rules. They voice their displeasure. And most importantly, they can tell you that you are wrong. A speaking god requires obedience to their will. A silent god, however, requires interpretation. And in the brutal universe of Warhammer 40,000, those who hold the power to interpret the silence are the ones who truly rule the galaxy. In the Imperium of Man, the Emperor's silence is not a tragedy for the ruling elite. It is their most devastating political weapon. Because the Emperor cannot issue direct orders, his will is a blank check, infinitely exploitable by those in power. Consider the Inquisition, or a corrupt planetary governor. When a governor decides to execute 1,000,000 striking factory workers who are starving to death, he does not stand before the masses and say, "I am doing this because I am greedy and I need to maintain my profit margins." No, he points to the sky and says, "The Emperor demands your execution. Your refusal to work is a heresy against the golden throne." The workers cannot argue with the Emperor, and the Emperor is not going to wake up from his 10,000-year coma to correct the governor. A speaking leader has policies, flaws, and a voice that can be debated. A silent god is an absolute. Every atrocity, every genocidal purge, and every systemic injustice in the Imperium is rubber-stamped by the silence of the Golden Throne. The Imperium is not ruled by the Emperor, it is ruled by the weaponized, deliberate misinterpretation of a corpse. To truly understand the catastrophic danger of the Emperor suddenly finding his voice, we must look back at who he actually was. Before the Horus heresy, the Emperor violently despised religion. He launched the Great Crusade to burn every temple, eradicate every superstition, and destroy the very concept of blind faith. His vision for humanity was the imperial truth, a galaxy ruled by cold, unfeeling science, reason, and logic. The greatest, darkest irony of the 41st millennium is that the Imperium is currently running on the exact ideology of the traitor Primarch Lorgar, the very man who first worshipped the Emperor as a god and was brutally punished for it. Today, the Adeptus Ministorum, the Ecclesiarchy, wields absolute suffocating power over trillions of souls entirely because they have convinced the galaxy that the Emperor is a divine being. Now imagine the unthinkable. Imagine the Emperor speaks, his voice echoes across the psychic network of 1,000,000 worlds, and his first command to the Ecclesiarchy is, "I am not a god. Tear down your cathedrals, burn your holy books, stop worshipping me." This would not lead to a new golden age of enlightenment. It would lead to the most devastating civil war in human history. The Ecclesiarchy has too much wealth, too much military power, and too much influence to simply step down. The Inquisition would face an impossible cognitive dissonance. How would they react? Human psychology suggests they would protect their power. The High Priests of Terra would inevitably declare that this voice is not the Emperor, but a trick of the chaos god Tzeentch. They would brand the Emperor's own words as heresy, and they would burn the galaxy to ash to silence him. The religion built around the Emperor is a parasitic organism that has grown so massive it no longer desires the host to wake up. Beyond the fanaticism of religion, there is the cold, crushing reality of absolute bureaucracy. The Imperium of Man is not an empire in the traditional sense. It is a runaway, mindless, logistical machine. It is kept functioning by the High Lords of Terra, a council of 12 individuals who wield the power of life and death over 1 million worlds. They command the Imperial Guard, the Imperial Navy, the Officio Assassinorum, and the Administratum. For 10,000 years, an incredibly fragile, utterly brutal balance of power has been maintained among these factions. They justify their endless political assassinations, their hoarding of ancient technology, and their callous sacrifice of entire star systems by claiming to act as the regents of the Emperor. They have grown extremely comfortable in the shadows of the Golden Throne. If the Emperor speaks, if he suddenly decides to take the wheel of the Imperium, the High Lords are instantly demoted from absolute sovereigns to mere secretaries. They would be forced to surrender unimaginable authority to a being who has not ruled in 10 millennia and who would undoubtedly be disgusted by everything they have built. Human history proves one absolute rule. Those who hold absolute power do not surrender it willingly, not even to the gods they claim to serve. Furthermore, the Imperium is so bloated with red tape that any sudden change in leadership would cause the logistical supply chains of 1 million worlds to completely snap. Trillions would starve in a matter of weeks simply because the ancient rusted gears of the Administratum cannot process a direct order from a living god. The bureaucracy of Terra would intentionally choke itself to death trying to stop him from changing the status quo. But let us hypothetically assume the politics, the religion, and the bureaucracy could somehow be resolved. We are still left with the most terrifying psychological reality of all. The entity sitting on the Golden Throne is no longer a human being. He has been strapped into a soul engine for 10,000 years. His mind has been violently stretched across the infinite madness of the warp, acting as a psychic lighthouse for the entire galaxy. He has absorbed the agonizing, screaming deaths of trillions of humans, and he has literally consumed the souls of 1,000 psykers every single day just to keep his heart beating. When the Primarch Robot Guilliman was resurrected and finally spoke to his father in the throne room, he did not find a loving human creator. In the novel Dark Imperium, Guilliman's encounter is described as sheer, cosmic horror. He found a fractured, terrifying, incomprehensible entity. The Emperor's mind is like a dying star, a chaotic, raging storm of conflicting, godlike personalities, completely detached from human morality, empathy, or warmth. Guilliman realized with absolute horror that the Emperor did not look at him as a son, but merely as a rusted tool found in a toolbox. If the Emperor were to speak to the masses, his voice would not offer comfort. It would be a psychic shockwave of pure, unadulterated madness. To hear the unshielded thoughts of what the Emperor has become, an eldritch god of order and agony, would literally shatter the sanity of a normal human being, boiling the blood in their veins. He does not remain silent merely by choice. He is gagged by the sheer, devastating weight of his own ascension. Ultimately, we must confront a dark truth about human sociology. The Imperium of Man does not need a leader. A leader is a human concept. A leader can make tactical mistakes. A leader can show emotional weakness. A leader can lose a battle, and when a leader fails, the morale of their followers breaks. The Imperium of Man does not need a leader, it needs a martyr. A martyr is mathematically perfect. A martyr's sacrifice justifies every horror, every atrocity, and every agonizing, back-breaking workday in the hive cities. When an Imperial Guardsman is charging into a hopeless, terrifying battle against alien monstrosities, he does not draw courage from the voice of a politician giving strategic orders over a voxcaster. He draws courage from the visceral image of the God Emperor, silently bleeding for him on the golden throne. The psychology of the Imperium runs on the currency of shared suffering. The starving factory worker endures his miserable existence because he believes his pain mirrors the pain of the Emperor. The Emperor's silence is the ultimate blank canvas upon which a terrified humanity paints its own desperate need for meaning. Being in silence every single day, he allows humanity to project whatever they need onto him: a father, a punisher, a protector, or a god. If he speaks, the illusion breaks. He becomes a person again, and in the grim darkness of the far future, a mere person cannot hold 1,000,000 worlds together. The Emperor of Mankind is the most powerful being in the material universe, yet he is its ultimate slave. He is a prisoner of his own throne, a prisoner of his own failing body, and most tragically, a prisoner of his own myth. He must scream in the silence of the warp, watching his dream of logic and reason rot into a nightmare of zealotry and ignorance. And he must do it without uttering a single word, because the moment he tells humanity the truth, the Imperium will tear itself apart. If this deep dive into the tragic silence of the Master of Mankind resonated with you, leave a like and subscribe to the Law Abyss. Let me know in the comments. Do you think the Emperor is completely aware of the nightmare he rules? Or has his mind shattered entirely in the warp? Until next time, keep your voices low, for the gods are listening.